USC football used to be one of the premier national title contending programs each and every year, and while they're still one of the biggest brands in college football, and arguably the biggest brand on the West Coast, the product and results have not been there over the last few years, and many like to blame that on Clay Helton. He is definitely on the hot seat going into 2021, and despite a 5-1 campaign in a shortened and weird 2020 season, fans are not happy, and it seems like they've been ready to replace him for quite a while. Going into 2021, they have a star quarterback who could be a top 10 pick in the draft, and a schedule that gives them an opportunity to make the college football playoff. We'll have to wait and see if they can put it all together. In today's video, I want to talk about the USC Trojans, go through their roster and their depth chart, talk about some major storylines, and my friend Alex from the Gridiron Expert is going to go through his schedule and give you guys predictions. But right before we get into that, please be sure to subscribe, as nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed, and we can definitely do better than that. Now let's get started and talk about USC football. As usual, we're going to take a look at the recruiting class and some of the transfers before we get started. And looking into their class, they had the number 7 overall group of recruits in the country, which was second best in the Pac-12. And this was headlined by 5-star recruit Corey Foreman. They had a ton of other talented players as well, but they also had 2 4-star quarterbacks signed in this class, who I'm very excited about and will touch on very soon. In terms of the transfer portal, they did lose running back Marquise Stepp and Patrick Carr, but they brought in TCU running back Darwin Barlow and Texas transfer Keontae Ingram, who should both step up. They brought in some really good wide receivers, as they brought in KD Nixon from Colorado, Taj Washington from Memphis, and Jake Smith from Texas. They brought in Chris Thompson, a safety transfer from Auburn, Malcolm Epps, a tight end from Texas, and a defensive tackle from Alabama by the name of Ishmael Sopsher. I'm really excited to see how this group pans out, but now let's take a look at the quarterback spot. Keaton Slovis is going to be the best quarterback in the Pac-12 this year, and I am absolutely pumped to see what he can do. He had an extremely good freshman year, and while he was a little bit inconsistent last year, I think he's going to be one of the top players in the country and should put it all together. But who the heck is behind him? Well, veteran quarterback Mo Hassan tore his ACL in the spring game, so they are now left with 2 true freshmen, and one of them is named Jackson Dart, and one is named Miller Moss. Both of them were 4-star recruits, one coming out of the state of Utah, and one coming out of the state of California, and are both top 100 guys, so I'm really pumped to see what their future could be like, but if Slovis goes down, I do have my concerns. The running back position is pretty interesting, as I said, they lost Stephen Carr and Marquise Stepp, but they brought in Keontae Ingram and Darwin Barlow. I expect both Ingram and Barlow to get plenty of snaps, and Vave Malapele will play, and Keenan Christian. This is a 4-headed monster in the backfield, and I do believe they will need one guy to separate himself from the rest of them. I think the 3 starters will be Gary Bryant Jr., KD Nixon, and Drake London. London is the superstar of this group, as they will have to replace both Tyler Vaughns and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I think he is the guy to do that. John Jackson III should play, Michael Jackson III will see the field, and of course, you cannot forget Brew McCoy, despite him being suspended at this very moment. At the tight end spot, the starter will likely be Jude Wolfe, and then you'll have guys like Eric Cromenhoek and Josh Fallow. At left tackle, the starter should be Cortland Ford, with his backup being Casey Collier. At left guard, the starter should be Andrew Voorhees, with his backup being Jason Rodriguez. At center, you're likely going to see Brent Neeleon and Justin Dedich. At right guard, there is a battle, as it'll come down to Leon Jimmins, Jalen McKenzie, and Justin Dedich. And finally, at the right tackle spot, it's going to either be Jalen McKenzie or Jonah Monheim. I am not a USC football fan, and I did my best research, so be sure to correct me or anything I got wrong. Turning over to the defense, the defensive line should include guys such as Nick Figueroa, Jacob Lickenstein, Ishmael Sopsher, Jay Toya, Tui Tuapolota, Jamar Sakona, their star Drake Jackson, Hunter Echols, and then of course Corey Foreman. At the linebacker positions, you're going to have guys like Raylan Goforth, Kanae Mwanga, Julian Simon, and Raymond Scott. At the cornerback spots, you'll have Chris Steele and Isaac Taylor Stewart, with their backups likely being Josh Jackson Jr. and Jaden Williams. Adonis Ote and Dorian Hewitt should also see the field. And then finally at the safety spot, you're going to have Isaiah Polamau, Xavion Alford, Kalen Bullock, Chase Williams, Anthony Beavers Jr., and Zamarion Gordon. I likely butchered a couple of these names and didn't get everything correct, so be sure to correct me down in the comment section if you are a USC fan. This takes a look at the roster, and I'm going to send over to Alex, who's going to break down the schedule and the predictions.
USC went 5-1 last year, with that lone loss coming to Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. The Trojans may need to get back to that championship game and win it this year if they want to save Clay Helton's job. Luckily for him, he certainly has the talent and the schedule for that to be a very strong possibility. When we look at USC's schedule, They open up against San Jose State, the reigning Mountain West Conference champions. So this is no pushover. This is no easy game for USC. The Spartans are going to challenge the Trojans. They return 9 starters back on offense, one that ranked 19th nationally in passing. They return all 11 starters on defense, one that ranked 26th nationally. And this is a game that I could very well see being close, within one possession, well into the third quarter. But USC should pull away. They are the better team from top to bottom. They own home field advantage. They'll beat the Spartans, but it will be a tougher game than many expect. They jump right into Pac-12 conference play with a game against Stanford. A Stanford team that won their final 4 games last year and whose strength is primarily going to be their defense. A defense that returns 8 starters, especially a strong back 7 in that linebacking core and secondary. But at the end of the day, I don't think Stanford's offense can keep up with USC. The Cardinals are dealing with a brand new quarterback in Jack West. Their running game seemed to pick it up a little bit towards the end of 2020, but still needs improvement. I just don't think that Stanford can hold on in this game. USC is 2-0. They travel to Pullman to take on Washington State. Well, they beat the Cougars by 25 last year, 38-13. And Washington State had one of the worst passing offenses in the country last year, allowing 307 passing yards per game. We all know that USC wants to air the ball out under Graham Harrell's air raid offense, and why wouldn't you? When you have Keaton Slovis as your quarterback, Drake London, Katie Nixon, and Brew McCoy as your wide receivers. USC is going to air it out, and they're going to dominate this game just like they did last year. Trojans are 3-0. They host Oregon State to round out September. Oregon State is a team that I think at the end of the day is going to be better than their final record indicates. But like many teams across the country, their schedule is just too tough. USC should literally take easy care of Oregon State here. Should be able to run all over them. Certainly will be able to pass all over them. The offense, again, kind of like Stanford, I don't think has the capability to hang in this game with the Trojans. After Oregon State, they travel to Colorado. This is a trendy upset for many. Many think that the Buffaloes, who nearly won the Pac-12 South last year, can take down the Trojans in Boulder. And if USC's rushing defense doesn't improve after allowing 153.3 rushing yards per game last year, Colorado very well could pull off this upset. The Buffaloes averaged over 200 rushing yards per game. They have a dual-threat quarterback now in Brendan Lewis, and they have a dominant running back duo in Jarek Broussard and Alex Fontenot. But USC has never lost to Colorado. They are 14-0 all-time against the Buffaloes. I'm going to err on the side of history here. It's a one-possession game, just like it was back in 2019, but USC gets the win. They get their biggest game of the year to date on October 9th when they take on Utah, a game that can very well determine who wins the Pac-12 South. Out of the 3 contenders, Arizona State, USC, and Utah, how they all fare against one another will ultimately decide the division. I like that USC has home field advantage here. They beat the Utes by 16 last year, 33-17, and while Utah's defense is once again going to be extremely strong, they're stronger against the rush than they are against the pass. I think home field advantage plays a bigger role here than people realize. USC wins this game. They're 6-0 going into their bye week, and anything less than that would be a disappointment. They come out of it, they take on Notre Dame. Big-time rivalry game, one that Notre Dame has won 3 straight in. USC has not won in South Bend since 2011, and that streak's going to continue in 2021. This Fighting Irish defense is for real. They have one of the best safeties in America in Kyle Hamilton. The secondary for Marcus Freeman is going to be flying all over the field, and Notre Dame also is coming off a bye coming into this game. Home field advantage on their side. Notre Dame gets the job done. USC runs past Arizona very quickly. They only won by 4 last year. It'll be drastically different this year. Game is at the Coliseum, and Arizona is the worst team in the Pac-12. Should take easy care of the Wildcats before that game against Arizona State that could ultimately, again, determine the Pac-12 South. We don't know exactly what will come of Arizona State with all these recruiting violations, but we do know that if nothing happens to them, they're going to have one of the best quarterbacks in the nation in Jaden Daniels, one of the best rushing attacks in the nation after averaging over 260 rushing yards per game last year, and many believe this could be the best defense Arizona State has fielded in decades. With the game being out in the desert, I believe that Arizona State gets this win. Home field advantage is playing another huge role, and keep in mind the Sun Devils should have beat the Trojans last year. A little bit hungover after the Arizona State game, I think USC falls to California. Many want to find one trap game for the Trojans. It's either going to be Colorado or California. And I have more faith in Justin Wilcox and the Golden Bears, who might have the best team that Wilcox has fielded since he arrived in Berkeley, and finally had the balanced offense to go along with the strong defense. That's where California differs from Colorado. I believe the Golden Bears get the job done at home, especially with USC a bit emotional after that tough loss to Arizona State. They round out their year with back-to-back home games against UCLA and BYU. I believe they defeat both of them. They survived UCLA last year 43-38. Don't expect it to be as close this time. USC does not need a late second touchdown like they did last year. They defeat the Bruins, and BYU simply lost too much. The most offensive production of any team in the country. They won't be able to hang with the Trojans, and especially on senior night of all nights. USC wins that game. They finish the year at 9-3. The two conference losses, though, at California and Arizona State, could be enough to boot Clay Helton out of LA. That's the million-dollar question. Will 9-3 be enough to keep him? And right now, we're going to say no.
So yeah, overall, USC has an opportunity to make the college football playoff this year, has a winnable schedule, and some really fun games. But the question is, will they be able to put it all together? And will Clay Helton be the coach going into 2022? That, I don't know, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to let me know your thoughts, give the video a like, and let me know what team I should do next. Also, do not forget to subscribe before you go, and check out all my other preview videos. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.